let's discuss a little bit first about the topic. This really came up in a very, I don't know, very spontaneous way. I think that's usually how talks usually happen. I just got an email from Raul saying, "Hey, would you like to give a talk, about SRE reliability and things?" And I was just about to go on vacation. So when we are just about to go on vacation, everything seems fine. And I said, "Sure, absolutely." Now, obviously, I regret it big time because we are all full of work. I was like, God, one more thing to do. But I think that with all the meaning of definitely being here at Talkdesk, I think that it pays off. And so I'm really happy, to be here and to be invited for sure. Why the topic? So the topic is something that definitely I hold very dearly in my heart, because I had a chance to work with the infrastructure teams, SRE teams, definitely helped a lot on the movement of having developers, in production, and with all that reserve responsibility. And it was amazing. It was definitely one of the best experiences that I had at Talkdesk and now throughout the rest of my career so far. And there is definitely something around, whenever something, when you have the responsibility of making sure that customers aren't unhappy or with the service that is not available, we really need to act promptly. We need to understand what we are doing. And obviously with that, all this responsibility, or we really feel that, that we are safe, that we are well equipped to perform the work, or definitely can be extremely challenging. That's pretty much how this topic was born, and so I brought here a couple of things to present. And again, I don't know exactly how long this is going to take. I'm imagining like half hour max, and then definitely opening up for questions, comments, even a healthy conversation. I don't know how long we have in terms of time. I think it's up to 3 p.m. if I'm not mistaken, Katerina. But anyways, whenever we need to break, we'll break it. So yeah, without further ado, let's start this presentation. So hello there. This is the way that I like to present myself, with this exact sentence, pretty much because I'm a big Star Wars nerd, and this is exactly what Kenobi says in the movie and also now on the TV series. He presents himself like this. So actually, this is an Easter egg here that I'm just revealing to all of you. Some of you already know my name. We've met already in person. Sometimes we just met online. We're exchanging a couple of ideas. So, in a big nutshell, I'm a senior engineering leader. I've been working in this space, leading teams for almost 14 years now. That's how I actually understand that I'm old, really old, trust me. Usually I like to say that I'm Portuguese and I'm working from Portugal, because sometimes I'm actually talking, in different conferences outside. And I really like kind of to carry the flag, because I really think that we are here in this country, we really should be working towards the right image that we want to project outside. I co-founded a community of CTOs in Portugal, which is been wonderful experience for sure. And I even have a podcast, so if you actually would like to see myself and Sara Gonçalves from OutSystems interviewing folks, like even some people that already went here as well, like Carlos Villana, just search online. We have on YouTube and Spotify. And so definitely an interesting time. Also I already have the chance to be an investor in the startup and also advise a couple of you. So definitely a lot of activity on that side. Just like I mentioned, big Star Wars fan. I also love Lego. And so these two combined is, it's a sweet spot for me. And, pretty much almost, I don't know, like vegetarian. I think I've become like 6 months ago or so, and it's been quite an interesting journey. Non-drinker, almost a year now. So I stopped drinking alcohol, and so an entire new world revealed to myself, which definitely it's interesting and changes a lot of perspectives. Last but not least, I really love to tell everyone that I don't know if it is because I did something right or if it is just because I'm lucky, but I'm actually one of the few that already worked on 3 different unicorns in Portugal. So, in 2015, Farfetch, even got now to an IPO, and I worked there in 2013, which was super interesting to work in a company that was with 80 people back then. Never thought that it would become what it became. Talkdesk joined 2016, 150 people, right? I don't know if everyone can imagine the company with only 150 people. Everyone would fit in a single floor in the Moreiras, okay? Truth be told. And sure, like, going through the stage of the unicorn, even having the 10x evaluation in 2018, definitely something that, again, I was not in the company anymore, but definitely, no, actually I was, but definitely super proud of being part of the story of this company. Last but not least, also Salsify became a unicorn. So it's my third, so again, might just be coincidence, but at least definitely I like to carry these 3 medals with me because it's definitely something that I think it's pretty unique. Anyways, enough about me. I'm not that interesting, trust me. I just like to show off because at the end of the day, if you meet me in person, I'm pretty boring. So let's talk about the topic today. I couldn't start talking about this if I wouldn't give at least like a very brief introduction about, the holy grail or holy fight, about development and operations. So we know here at Talkdesk that it's awesome, to developing code, maintaining it in production, being able to do our own releases and so on and so forth. At least that's how I kind of met the company, and that's how, again, today I'm working. But it was not always like this. Okay, so there is definitely some companies, and again, it's not better or worse, it's just different, that definitely really separated, the development side from the operation side. And it was very interesting because pretty much you would see that you had two very different silos with two very different interests, right? So one, there is the development, always wanted to change, always wanted to push, features into production, while obviously in operations, they were working on the other side of the spectrum, that is, I don't want to make releases. I just want stable systems and available for customers. And hence having a wall here because there was kind of, a lot of conflicts and, back and forth of work and responsibility, in this wall. Or recently, I don't know how many years, maybe 10 years, 15 years. I don't know when the DevOps movement started, but it was around 2000 something. We really got to the conclusion that it could be super interesting actually for people to just forget about the wall and work together on the same side, so just break the silos, work together and really making sure, that there would be no separation between, development and operations, but actually those should be combined in one, because that's how you can really make the entire meaning and purpose of what we do as software engineers. And that's kind of, DevOps on a nutshell. Regarding SRE, I could also tell about SRE, but look, truth be told, just read the book. It's super lengthy. It's more than 400 pages. I read it, so if I can read it, I'm pretty sure you can do it as well. Super interesting read, a lot of technical stuff, some stuff that is just about on-call and things. Strongly advise it to do it. So, SRE, it's in the book, it's well documented, so that's fine. Now let's talk about a topic that is super interesting. That is the developers on call, and this to me really relates nicely with learning in production, with screwing up in production. So with the DevOps mentality comes this idea, that developers should also be on call, because back in the day, the only people that would be on call would be, SRE or operations, sysadmins, you name it, like people that simply didn't develop code. And as you could imagine, that brings a lot of problems, right? Because let's say myself as a software engineer, I can develop and I can push even things on, to production on Friday at 6 p.m. because if later on, if there we have a problem or even during the weekend, well, too bad, sucks to be someone that is going to carry the pager because I'm just going to work again at 9 a.m. Monday. And so, this idea of having developers on call definitely kind of, reminds me a lot about, Scrum teams and this story about, the chicken and the pig. And I don't know if you know about this story. I tried to mention this story a couple of years ago back at Talkdesk, but this idea here is that there is a huge difference between, being committed and just being and being involved, And so the story just goes by this, like a chicken and a pig, they decided to create a restaurant and they are both super excited about this idea. And then, the pig just asks, okay, so what do you think the name of the restaurant should be? And, and the chicken says something about, oh, let's call it M and X. And obviously the pig thought that it was a pretty bad idea, because the chicken obviously can give all the eggs that the chicken can, while obviously for the ham, the pig would need to die. And that's pretty much, the big difference, between being committed and being involved. So if that image was not super clear, this is the big difference, right? Being involved is like we would like to say in Portugal, mandar bitites, right? And so that's something really easy, you know. I've definitely met a lot of bititeiros in my life, and that's something easy to do because it's not my problem. So I can always have an opinion, that's fine. While when it's committing, it's, you know, it's definitely walking the talk, it's living with the consequences of those decisions. And that makes, you know, makes everything different. And I really like the idea of having developers on call, right? So the people that are making decisions about systems, about making releases to production, they are also going to live with those decisions, and that's completely fine. That's why I actually suggest, you know, that, you know, those two gentlemen, you know, outside the hall are, you know, we are all pigs. That's kind of, you know, the big takeaway of this slide, without wanting to offend anyone and without judging my, you know, Photoshop or Paint capabilities of just gluing the pig face into these people's faces. The idea is that we should all be together as a single team and sharing the responsibility instead of just kind of sending the responsibility to the other side of the fence. And that's, to me, it's all about developers on call, and why I believe, and when I got to Talkdesk, I was a strong proponent of this. It's here, even at Salsify, obviously. You know, if developers are not on call, I don't think developers should code, period. Take it or leave it. Now that hopefully you believe that I actually made it clear that developers on call, it's awesome, and you already forgot about that image of the creepy people with the pig face. What do I believe it's key on the on-call process? What I think is super important for us to have it there. I think it really boils down to just two things. One is psychological safety. So there's no way I'm going to convince, you know, to carry a pager and be paged at 4 a.m. if I don't feel, you know, safe enough to operate, you know, to succeed, also to make mistakes. Because guess what? I'm human, and it's what humans do usually, more than often. And also, obviously, autonomy. How well equipped I am, what is my latitude here, what's my freedom to operate, and these two, I really think, you know, from experience, from seeing so many teams on call, I really believe are the two best ingredients to really succeed being on call. And pretty much because when you combine them both, you actually, it's when you're really safe to learn in production. Now, I'm saying learning in production because I could call this fail in production, and that's fine. But I mention and I call it learning because it's not about failing or even success failure, because I think that, you know, with all the bluntness that I'm entitled to, I think that's just stupid. You shouldn't celebrate failure. You should celebrate when you learn something that actually came out of failure, and that's fine, right? It's just another way for you to learn. But if you don't learn, then don't celebrate failure, because you're just really going, you know, on the bad spiral. So to me, it's all about this. You know, it's about learning in production, you know, taking the most out of it, and becoming a better version of yourself as you go by, okay? And this, to me, it's what's really important. And one thing that now obviously I would like to do is really to deep dive on these two things, and hopefully to show you how interesting and important they are, you know, from obviously an on-call perspective, but even for other things in life, okay? And by the way, it's not me. I'm bringing actually studied some smart people to back these statements up, okay? So fasten your seatbelt. This is going to be interesting. Or maybe you actually already know about this, and that's fine too. So, and sorry for that. So psychological safety. What the hell is this? Why should I matter? Why is this interesting? So psychological safety, pretty much a term was coined by someone way smarter than me that pretty much defined this as the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. So this is what psychological safety means. And as you can see, I'm hoping that you now start to relate this, obviously, for the on-call process and the reliability that we are talking about today. But hey, maybe even your regular work at your team, at your company, maybe even with your families, right? Like if one believes that every time we're going to express ourselves, someone's going to mock us or not respect our opinion, we are not in a safe environment, right? And so this is something that is, in my opinion, very important, you know, from a life perspective, from a professional perspective. I think that's definitely having psychological safety is very important. And this topic is so interesting that even a lot of studies came up. Like there is a TEDx talk, fantastic, by Amy Edmondson that I even brought here. And I don't know if the URL is still working, but the talk, you know, you can find it if you search for building a psychological safe workplace. The talk is amazing. It's like 15 minutes. So, you know, it's definitely worth investment. And it was super, super cool because, you know, this Amy, besides delivering this definition that I think it makes perfect sense, I also brought a study to that presentation that the study focused on hospital patient care teams errors. So they were really curious to understand, how many errors, the best hospital teams in the US, were doing, and how could that eventually correlate with psychological safety. And the TLDR of that presentation, or at least that study, was that at the very beginning, they were really surprised because when they took a look to the data that they collected, they saw that the better teams actually had more mistakes, more errors than the low performing teams. And at the very beginning, people were like, holy crap, like, how is that even possible, right? Like the best teams are making the biggest mistakes. This is so odd. But the interesting thing was that what they actually came up to the conclusion was that, and maybe we could even relate this with other things in our life, is that it was not the better teams that were making more mistakes. Actually, better teams were reporting more mistakes because they were actually felt that they were safe to reporting them. So the underperforming teams and the low-scoring teams were actually swiping the problems and the errors under the rug, and they were not discussing them openly, while the other teams, the better teams, they actually discussed the problems as teams. And that's exactly why they were becoming better teams, because they were learning with each other and they were being honest about the mistakes and learning from them. So there was a very clear correlation between psychological safety, being a better team, and being very open about discussing topics, mistakes, learning from them without being afraid of losing their jobs, of getting a less interesting performance review or losing a bonus, things like that. So this is definitely very interesting. Another thing that also correlates or relates a lot with psychological safety is even Google, right? Like Google, the company that we all know and love, and at least half of this audience probably has an Android phone and a Gmail. So pretty much we rely all our entire lives into this company. They were pretty puzzled about what really could make a difference between a successful team at Google and one that didn't perform that well. And so, just like any sort of cool project, they came up with a super interesting name called Aristotle. And you have here the blog and the website if you would like to check for yourself. But it was super interesting that after Google crunching like 1,000 million data points, they actually came up with the solution or the characteristics of what a great Google team looked like, being the number one characteristic, the psychological safety inside that team. And so again, this is a nice evidence that psychological safety definitely builds a lot on us as teams, on us performing on call, everything, right? Obviously, a lot of other things emerge like dependability, structure and clarity, meaning, impact, and so on. But definitely psychological safety was rated as number one, okay? So psychological safety to me is crucially, for our profession, and especially on call where you're under pressure, under the spotlight, and it needs to be okay for you to perform, in a not so great way. Last but not least, autonomy. Autonomy is also crucial, right? Like there is a book that, again, sometimes I feel like Marcel, if that's the case, I'm sorry. Not about the selfies, but the books. This is an awesome book that you should read. This book is super inspiring. It's all about leadership. This guy here that is holding the book is the author. His name is David Marquette. And he tells a story about a submarine that I'm not going to tell it here, but it's amazing how he really believed that in order for one to perform at its best, it really needs to have in place clarity, competence, and autonomy. And again, it's all about autonomy, right? Like autonomy, it's what makes us different and more performing. Obviously, again, as long as we know what is expected out of us, clarity, and as long as we know what needs to be done, so competence. But autonomy is definitely crucial. Just in case you would like to read this book and you think, oh my God, Pedro, I would love to read one book more. Can you please tell me about one more book? I can say, yes, sir, here's one last book. So this one here is very similar to the previous one. Again, different guy. This one actually has a weird face looking to his own book, but it's okay. I won't judge. His name is Daniel Pink. And again, different studies, really trying to understand what motivates us as individuals. And on his book, what really comes up as the key differentiators is three things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And as you can see, again, autonomy is here. So autonomy to me is key in order for us to be in our best version of ourselves, and for us to evolve, to become better professionals, ultimately to become better persons. So with all of this being said, and hoping that now you actually believe, that in order for one to perform well in on-call, we need to have psychological safety and we need to have autonomy. I bring you here like 10 tips. So definitely moving away from, from the theory and really bringing here what my experience showed me and told me, that I think that if it happens, I think that definitely we can learn a lot in production. So we can make mistakes, we can learn from it, and we can operate in a safe way, because I think that's exactly what matters. Number one, I actually don't believe that every time we have an incident, we should have someone asking about it. I think this might sound a little bit weird, saying, well, but if there's an incident, everyone's kind of all hands on deck and it's like an urgency. Absolutely, for sure. But trust me, it doesn't help if someone is solving an incident and it's being pinged somewhere because someone needs to know how things are, right? Make sure that you really create the right process where the information is being pushed to the right people, and you're not expecting for them to be pulled, because if people are pulling information from you, you're pretty much falling in the trap of, or you're solving the incident or you're reporting what's happening. And so, with the right process in mind, you definitely can tackle this one pretty easily. The other one is no pressure. Look, I'm pretty sure that when we are trying to solve an incident in production, no one wants to see this one solved more than the person that is trying to solve it. So I completely understand, when we are kind of, asking about things, asking about status updates, asking if it's going to take a long time. I understand. Look, we all react differently, when we are in the middle of an urgency. Just take a deep breath. It's fine. We are doing the best that we can. Just let's make sure that we have the right processes, again, for the information to circulate, and we can be focusing on our tasks. Like, there is no need for pressure, because I really believe that people under pressure is just going to make more mistakes, and it's just going to add to the problem, not to the solution. Again, full autonomy, and autonomy here again is key, to declare incidents. Like my recent experience, it really showed me a super interesting way to operate in this part. That is, like, the last team that I saw operating with incidents, it is just a team deciding to declare an incident or even support. And so this is awesome, because it's not about subjectivity. Is when we hit some numbers, and numbers that don't lie, it's just facts. So it's not my opinion. We declare an incident and that's it. And we embrace that with full transparency, full autonomy. We have an issue, sure. Let's say, hey, we have an issue. We are going to work on that. I think that's amazing. That contributes to the transparency of the service. And of course, sure, if you have an SLA, it kind of sucks big time to all of a sudden not meeting an SLA, and that's part of life. But hey, let's be honest. Even if Facebook and the Google and Amazon of this life, they have incidents, I'm pretty sure that Talkdesk and the Salsify can afford to have a few incidents as well, right? So definitely not being afraid of declaring, things how they are. Also, being very honest and transparent regarding the way that we want to communicate to the customers, right? Like, I'm amazed on the things that I'm seeing, recently, like the executives, the managers, they don't decide what we are going to tell to customers. It's pretty much, if we have an issue with service A or with feature A, the people that are handling the issue are the ones that are best positioned to just say, look, this is the sort of messaging that we should be sending to customers. And that's fine. Let's just update the status page with what things are, having the people that are, committed, not just involved, making that decision. Again, autonomy to make those calls. I really believe this is really important. Also, again, full transparency on the incident. Inside, let's make sure that creating Slack channels, opening Zoom calls, whatever that is, let's not shield ourselves from what is happening. Let's make sure that if people want to know what's happening, we are not inside a closet or, inside some sort of dungeon solving the problems. Again, we are operating in a safe way. I know that right now you guys are all full remote, but again, let's make sure that if actually we would be in the office, we could just be there supporting each other. So having a way to really reach out to the people that are dealing with an incident, I think it's really, really important. Also, one thing that I see that really works well from a safety perspective is making sure that we don't have a single person on call. I couldn't imagine of a more scary scenario than being paged at 3 a.m., being sleepy, needing to deal with something, and knowing that, at least in theory, I wouldn't have anyone else that could back me up or help me brainstorm on the situation. I came to find that having, actually two people on call. So one that is the primary, the first person that gets paged, but knowing that is someone that is backed up. And in case of some sort of stress, that person can also be paged. I think it really comes a long way to make sure that we pretty much create a safety net. And, and someone that is in the primary role, really on the line of fire, that having someone backing them up, I think it's super interesting. And again, only if needed. So don't think that I'm just suggesting having twice as much people on call, but if needed, I think this really is useful and very important for everyone. At least if you've been on call, I'm pretty sure that you already related with that. The other thing that I think it's super interesting, and I don't know exactly how Talkdesk is doing that right now. I know that back in my day, we were exploring a couple of scenarios regarding the incident commander. So the person that is coordinating the incident, I really believe that it should be someone that it's not involved is just involved, not committed to solve the situation. So the incident commander, the person that is orchestrating, the status page, the updates, supporting the people that are solving the incidents, should be someone that is not actively working on that. That was actually something that we explored back in the day, for instance, the Talkdesk, and now I actually have a different opinion. I'd much rather have someone that is just involved, really coordinating things and showing empathy and supporting things, than being one of the people that are, trying to fix the issue. Because again, trying to fix the issue and being incident commander or sending updates can be stressful and distractive. And again, I think that everyone knows what's the problem with, multitasking. So, even today, we understand now that women are not capable of doing multitasking, right? So even that myth just fell. So that's how crazy it is. So definitely, taking this in command out of the picture, I think it's super important. Also, I know you do this already, but I bring it in an additional twist that I think it's super powerful. So Google, a couple of years ago, made very popular the idea of blameless postmortems. That is, after an incident, after something went wrong, we really create something, a document, an artifact that we can learn from, and that we can also definitely, keep track of action points or things that we want to do to improve and so on. And pretty much the idea of them being blameless, because it's completely pointless to say if the fault was on person A or person B. Again, it goes against the psychological safety. And so that's why blameless is super useful, because it's all about the situation and not about what people did and that was wrong. And it was that, it's someone's to blame. The new twist that I actually bring today is that I really like the idea of having the postmortems anonymized. And this is actually a mouthful. But I say this anonymized because I couldn't care less, if the engineer that was on the incident was actually Pedro Torres or it was Ricardo Araújo. I think that's completely irrelevant, right? If an engineer picked up the incident at 2 a.m., that's all that matters, right? I really don't need to have a document that is going to live for the next 5 years with the name of the person that went through that and all of that. So I actually believe if the postmortem is well documented with all the necessary data, in order for us to learn from the incident, having names there doesn't help, and it's pretty irrelevant. So my new take regarding postmortems is that it's not only blameless, but they should also be anonymized. Again, in the postmortem meeting, you have the relevant people there, but for the future, for the history, when we keep them in the Tour du Tombe or whatever that is, having names there is just, it's just useless. So I think it's definitely an interesting thing for you to explore. 2 to go, actually just one, if I just show this one. Just before the last, so discuss openly incidents, and potential issues. Like don't just ignore them. Don't think or don't fall into this wishful thinking that, this probably is just a network error, or, this is just a provider issue. My experience after working with, with highly talented engineering teams, just like the ones that I had the pleasure to lead at Talkdesk, the ones that I have right now at Saucify, it's never someone else's issue. Trust me, if you think that this is a problem because of partner X, it's extremely likely that that's actually not the case. Actually, it's a problem that we have. And I think that if we are more persistent and less naive in thinking that the problem is outside our hands, I think that we can definitely get way closer to the root cause. Like, don't get me wrong. There might be the chance that actually the provider might have an issue, but it is, 99% of the times actually they don't have. And so I think that the faster you drop that wishful thinking and really take a very analytical look to what's happened, I think that you can definitely make a much better job in production and really learning from it. Last but not least, and this one to me also is probably one of the strongest in terms of learning and, and in production and really feeling safe about what one is doing. Be solidary and really help if needed. I know that we have processes in place. I know that we have shifts in place. I know that we have people that are responsible to fix issues in production. But nothing makes me happier if someone that is completely unrelated comes to me and says something like, hey, do you need any help? Do you want me to troubleshoot this with you? Do you want us to invest some time? I think that is really fantastic, because that's really when people really go beyond like, oh, it's not my team. Oh, it's not my system. Oh, it was not me that was on call. And we really come together as as one team solving a problem. Because trust me, customers couldn't care less if it is, person A or person B that is on call or in a different team. If we have an issue, we should come together to fix it. Again, as long as people can really contribute to that problem. And this is something that sometimes I didn't see it like that. So I saw sometimes some teams struggling and, and that they are just by themselves. And I just see other people just, shrugging, saying, hey, I don't know. It's not me. It's not my system. And, with all due respect, I don't think that that's the right behavior, the right sort of culture that we really would like to work in. So let's make sure that we can definitely support each other. And again, it contributes to a safe learning in production. Just as a closing thought, because I already invested 36 minutes of talking, and you feel a little bit more tired about what I'm saying. Does anyone know who this fine gentleman is? People can write on Slack, on chat, it's fine. But I think it's pretty obvious. I know that the person is not in this club anymore, but I'm not following football anymore. I'm a little bit upset. So hopefully I'm already seeing a couple of Sergio Ramos here. Yes, thank you so much for that. Yes, it's Sergio Ramos. So some of you know who this person is. Some people might not follow really up on this and say, I don't care. It's just another guy with a beard, right? And we have definitely too many of those. But if you actually pay some sort of attention, or if you don't pay that much of attention, this guy is probably one of the best defenders in the history of football. Okay. He started his career in Sevilla. He's trying to speak in Spanish now. Then he went to Real Madrid. And now I think he's just, retiring at Paris Saint-Germain. But if you take a look to his honors back in Real Madrid, this is pretty much amazing, right? 700 games. He played for Spain 170 times, which is amazing. He scored lots of goals for a defender. See how many trophies he won. I think it's fair to say that this person is fairly successful at his craft, right? So I can definitely imagine a lot of football players that would give everything to have this sort of curriculum and this sort of success. So this is definitely a no-brainer that this person is successful. But now guess what? Assuming that I actually convinced you that this person is super successful, take a look to this episode that I'm bringing for you today. So back in 2018, Sergio Ramos was actually the first player to have this on a single game. Missed the penalty, scored the penalty, and scored an own goal. In the same 90 minutes, this football player here that you're seeing with all these trophies and all these honors had these 3 episodes. And guess what? I'm pretty sure that when he failed the penalty the first time, he didn't become the worst defender in the history of football. When he scored the penalty, he didn't become the best because of that either. And when he scored the own goal, well, sure, it's a bummer. And that, as you can see, even Real Madrid lost the game. But again, that didn't change anything about this person, right? This person has its own history, its own achievements, its own success and sort of performance. And let's just say that probably had a bad game or a couple of bad episodes. Now you might be wondering, why the hell are we now talking about football? This guy's strange. Yes, it's true, I'm strange. But I'm bringing this story because, as you can see, this same person, the one that probably we all agree that is an extremely successful football player, in 90 minutes, had awesome things and also had a couple of failures. So my invitation to all of you, and again, really related with safety, is that don't be afraid to be on call. Just because we are on call and we might make mistakes, and it's fine because it's a lot of responsibility. If we actually have safety, so if you can learn production, that's completely fine. And you should definitely take that step forward, because it's not because you're going to have a bad day, just because you scored an own goal, just because you lose a match, that is going to make you a worse software engineer or professional. So don't be afraid to learn in production, because that's pretty much just a thing that you should do and not something that is going to characterize you as a professional. I leave you this presentation with two sentences that definitely brings a lot of inspiration in my life. Maybe the one that is right in the center really correlates a lot with, with the penalties, that is, the only people who never fail are the ones that never try. So guess what? If you failed in production, if you learn in production, well, it's just because you tried. The ones that don't fail are the ones that are never on call. So don't be afraid to be on call and to fail, because that's just one thing that might happen. It doesn't mean that you're bad because of that. And yes, and in order for you to live like this, that sentence that you have on the top that is called never give in, it's probably one of the best sentences that I've heard Sir Alex Ferguson say. That is, never give up. Don't give up of being a good professional. Don't give up of trying and learning, because from the moment that you give in is the moment that you pretty much end as a professional. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time.